Anytime I'm at the beach, I collect rocks, and I always wonder what would happen if I were to tumble them and try turning them into crystals. Especially because when I get home with my collection of beach rocks, they always seem to dry up, have no shine, and become pretty dull. And a lot of them are pretty large, so I always thought to myself that there could be layers within those rocks that could be shed that would then reveal a shiny, polished stone. And rocks do have layers, especially the ones that are found at the beach, because as they move around the waters, sediments and little pieces in the water start to grow on the rocks, and that can accumulate over thousands of years, causing the rocks to become thicker and bigger than what is actually underneath the surface. And that is where I thought to myself that maybe I could get a rock tumbler so that I could tumble them and see if I could turn the rocks I've collected over the years into crystals. So I did exactly that, and once my tumbler arrived, I started to get it ready to fill it with some rocks. And that's when I started to get excited, because it made me realize how endless the possibilities are. Because if this worked, then I could go to the beach and to volcanoes and to glaciers and even just the regular sidewalks and collect rocks that I could then tumble for a few weeks and see what they all hide underneath the dull exterior, and whether or not we could reveal some beautiful stones and crystals. Now, my tumbler actually came with about 15 unpolished stones, and so it was in that moment that I realized that I was about to conduct the perfect experiment. I was gonna add the rocks that came with the kit into the tumbler barrel, as well as about 5 or 6 of my own rocks that I've collected at the beach over the years. I'm an avid rock hoarder. But then we would be able to see the difference between the beach rocks and the rocks that came with the kit, because of course those were gonna be perfect. And if it worked for the beach rocks, then that would answer our question of whether or not we could continue going to different places to collect rocks and try to polish them to see what they would reveal underneath. Basically, we're all like a rock, and you have to polish those thick outer layers in order to reveal our inner beauty that really lives underneath, if you know what I mean. So, as I got my 2 sets of rocks into the tumbler, I started learning about how this process even works and how we could end up with the best possible results too. And I realized that this was gonna take many weeks to accomplish, because there are about 5 steps in this process that each need between 3 and 10 whole days of tumbling to get those optimal A1 results, which meant that we were in for a process of about 4 to 6 weeks to get to the final results and for this to possibly work. And then I realized that even though this was gonna take a while and patience was gonna be key here, it was likely gonna be worth it, because there is always something underneath the outer bodies of the rocks, and we were truly lucky here because the rock tumbler speeds up 1,000 or million year process into the matter of just a few weeks. And that is what I call you, science.
Thanks, Channing Tatum.
But in all seriousness, you can't see a caterpillar transform into a butterfly unless it sheds its layers first. And you can't see a turtle come out of its shell unless it pokes its head out and reveals the vibrant, colorful creature inside. And you can't see a monstera leaf shoot out of the mother plant without days and days of uncurling to reveal a beautiful fenestration, which is just the holes that develop as the leaf uncurls. So, it's safe to say that the best results in anything come to those who have a lot of patience and are able to wait and enjoy the slower parts throughout the process, because that is where the true beauty lies, and the true ways of how we learn and become experts. Listen, I know that we fail a lot on this channel. It's all trial and error. But with that, the first 5 days ended up passing, and I immediately went to check on the rocks. I opened the tumbler barrel up to reveal the rocks, and might I add, they were looking very good. I cleaned out all the water, and by the way, if you are doing this at home, make sure not to throw the water down the sink or the drains, because the grit can ruin your drains and your plumbing, and instead wash your gritty stones and barrel outside with a garden hose and either add it back into your garden or pour it somewhere like on the sidewalk. And if you're watching this and you do want to to try it at home, you can actually find the rock tumbler in my Amazon shop, and I'll add the link below in the caption. But anywho, I added new water, the second round of grit, and began to wait, this time for 8 more days. And as my rocks started to tumble, I learned that water is the original rock tumbler. Waves and currents would bash against each other, knocking off sharp edges, and the abrasive sediments and sands found in the water smooth the stones even more as they tumble, and the sheen of the water further evens out any irregularities in the surface, giving the stones a highly polished look. And if you're wondering, like I was, about what the heckin' a sheen of water is, it's that thin, shiny layer of water that appears on the surface. It often creates a reflective or glossy effect, and it's often associated with a light rain, dew, or the surface tension of water. The sheen can make the surface look smooth and can enhance the colors and details underneath the rocks even more as they tumble. Now, depending on the kind of rock, the natural process again can take decades to create a smooth, pretty pebble. And that is how polished stones are created in oceans and rivers over the course of thousands of years. And of course, humans eventually caught hold of this knowledge and quickly began to bring it into communities and commercialize nature's idea in order to monetize and, of course, put food on the table for their families. Since ancient times, people have tried to find ways to imitate and improve on nature's methods. In Egypt and India, stones would be cut into preliminary shapes, placed in a goat skin bag or a jar with a mixture of water and abrasive sand, and then rolled on a teeter-totter to polish them. In China, garnet was used as a grit to provide even cleaner polishing, and in order to improve their polishing results, they would actually tumble the rocks in stages, each stage using a finer grit until the final stage where they would use a mixture of ground garnet to provide the final shine and sheen. But the problem was that these methods took years to produce and took a lot of hard labor to get even just a small quantity of finely polished stones. And that's when the 1950s came around. The boomers built the modern rock tumblers, and they introduced it as a mini machine that could use a specific tumbling technique to produce large quantities of polished stones with very little labor. And that's also when other inventors followed this example and, just like content creators and videos, started repurposing the idea with their own little twists to reveal a different version of that idea. And soon, polished stones were showing up in jewelry stores all over the world. And to pause from this story for a minute to get back to the results of our rocks, finally, those 8 days had passed, and the rocks were ready to tumble into step number 3, the third round of grit, which was going to take another 8 days. And by now, the rocks were looking pretty amazing in my opinion. I completed the same steps as before, cleaned out the barrel, reviewed the rocks, and compared the rocks that came with the kit against the rocks that we found at the beach. And honestly, it was pretty hard to tell the difference between the two, which was good news because it meant that we could likely continue doing this with other rocks and glass and things that we find. It looked like this one could have been a beach rock. I wasn't really sure at this point, but I would know at the very end because I had a list of all the stones and their names that came with the kit. So we were going to do a process of elimination to see which ones were really the beach stones. And then the time came for me to add new fresh water to the tumbler barrel, add the new grit in, and then I proceeded to wait another 8 days. I'll get back to the story because I actually learned that the cool thing about this new modern rock tumbler that was built in the 1950s was that you didn't have to cut the stones into pieces like they once did in Egypt, India, and China, because the machine allowed the rocks to just be placed in its natural form to tumble as is and essentially kept in their natural irregular shapes. And so these natural rocks that could be tumbled became known as baroque stones. They came in unconventional shapes and became what we know today as stones like quartz, amber, and even coral. And it did not take long for the rock tumbling hobby to catch on because by the 1960s, these machines could be found in homes all across the United States. The machines usually consisted of a little more than a paint can barrel attached to a motor and a pulley to keep the barrel spinning. But there was a problem because the rattling of the rocks created a lot of noise and the cans wore out quite quickly. So inventors and manufacturers quickly realized that they had to develop some sort of rubber-lined barrel that was more durable and a lot quieter. Well, back to our tumbler. we were finally ready for step number 4. And this was finally the last grit, which would help give the best results, but they needed to tumble for 10 days here instead of 8. So the waiting game continued. But of course, I had to review the stones and see what we were working with here. This is what they look like now. And by now, it had been about 3 weeks, so I was getting really excited, especially since the kit came with these fun little charms so that I could turn them into little keychains and pieces of jewelry. And let me tell you that I was so excited, I could hardly wait. The tumbler was actually pretty loud, but closing the door of my office drowned out the sound pretty well, so just remember, if you are doing this at home, it is still quite loud, and you'll need a room with a door. I was also nervous to keep it tumbling if I left the house, so whenever I did leave the house, I turned it off and unplugged it, and then resumed it when I got home. So that naturally made the process take a little bit longer. If any of you are wondering why it took some extra days than it actually needed, and if you felt like you were waiting a little bit too long, I apologize. But at this point, I continued to tumble them for 10 more days until it finally passed. At this point, the rocks had been tumbling for exactly 32 days. A little more than the usual 29 or 30 days because I needed those extra 2 or 3 days as a buffer for when I turned it off when I wasn't home. But I was so ready for this final step. I took the tumbler, I popped open the lid, and we were finally at the last step of the tumbling process, which was adding something called gem foam and tumbling for 3 more days. And before I started tumbling the gem foam, I noticed they shrunk up a lot and got very small, and that was pretty cool to me, especially this one. This was a beach rock that I loved. It got so small and I was so confused. But before I could start that last step, I had to clean out the tumbler barrel, remove the grit from all the rocks, and this is what we were working with. They were looking absolutely astonishing. I loved it so much. So anywho, I added the rocks back to the tumbler, covered the rocks with water, and then I finally added the gem foam. Gem foam is just a polishing media and it gives unprecedented shine to the rocks. It's typically made from a soft, porous foam that can release polishing compounds. It basically helps to create a smooth, polished finish on stones by gently abrading the surface to wear away any dull or dry parts of the rock while minimizing the risk of scratching the rocks altogether. It's the final step to enhance the polishing process, and it's especially useful because of the fact that it's what's needed to achieve a high gloss shine at the end of the process. So with that, the final 3 days passed. I removed the tumbler barrel from the machine, popped the top open to reveal the final rocks. I was thinking of tumbling them for another 2 days to make them even more shiny, but at this point, they still seem slightly dull. I was just getting a little too excited to finally look at them. And now it was time for process of elimination to see which were the beach stones and which were the stones that came with the kit. The stones that came with the kit, I saw an amethyst, which is a member of the quartz family, and the color comes from the presence of iron or manganese impurities within the quartz. Its name comes from the Greek word for not intoxicated, because in ancient times it was believed to prevent drunkenness. It's actually been considered a calming influence that promotes healing, happiness, and peace. Some even say it offers protection from sorcerers and thieves. Next, we got 2 rose quartz, which unlike most varieties of quartz, this is pink. Mineralogists do not completely understand the source of rose quartz highly prized pink color, but many believe that it comes from iron, titanium, and manganese impurities within the stone. But it's often looked at as the stone of love. It's believed to promote emotional healing, enhance self-love, and foster harmony in relationships. It's also thought to reduce stress, activate the heart chakra, and provide comfort during grief, all while emitting positive energy. Next, I found 1 piece of jasper, which is an opaque gemstone that is a type of quartz made up of microcrystals. Other minerals and even organic matter can make up as much as 20% of a piece of jasper, and the impurities in the stone produce a rainbow-like effect of colors, sometimes even spots, that make each piece unique. It comes from the Greek word meaning spotted stone, and it's believed that it could drive away evil spirits and protect against snake and spider bites, and even bring about rain in nature. But many people today wear jasper to bring about tranquility, alleviate stress, and reduce negative energy. Next, I found 2 tiger's eye stones, which is a golden brown gemstone that is a member of the quartz family. It's said that Roman soldiers wore tiger's eye for protection in battle, and it's thought to have many mystical powers that provided deep sense of protection for those who hold or wear it. Next, I saw 3 sodalite stones, which is a bright blue mineral that's got its name from its high sodium content, and it's said to be called the poet's stone, or the stone of truth, reflecting the belief that it helps rational thinking and clear communication, and under ultraviolet light, some sodalite stones will glow a fluorescence in shades of red or orange. Next, I found 2 hematite stones, which is a mineral form of iron oxide. Its name comes from the Greek word for blood because some of them have one blood red streak. NASA's Mars Global Surveyor located 2 deposits of hematite on the red planet, which is pretty awesome too, and it's believed to promote grounding and stability, helping to alleviate stress and anxiety while enhancing focus and concentration. It's also thought to aid in the absorption of negative energy, fostering a sense of protection and balance in one's emotional state. Second to last of the rocks that came with the kit, I found 1 aventurine and last 1 agate. Aventurine is a variety of quartz that usually occurs as a green stone. Small flakes of hematite can make aventurine sparkle and glisten, an effect called Aventura's essence. And it was discovered actually accidentally by a Venetian glassmaker in the 1700s, who then gave it the name Ventura, meaning by chance. It has often been considered a good luck stone, and some people believe it can enhance creativity and imagination. It's even thought to stimulate dreams, promote a positive outlook on life, and improve people's visions. And lastly, from the kit, the agate stone, and my personal favorite variety of crystal. It's a variety of chalcedony, a type of quartz made up of microcrystals. They are translucent, so light passes through them, and when you slice them open, they reveal beautiful bands of various colors, created as layers of minerals were deposited over time into cavities within other rock formations. Agate is known for its grounding properties, helping to promote emotional balance and relieve stress, and it's also believed to enhance mental clarity and foster harmony in relationships. It's also thought to support physical healing and protect against negative energies. And guys, so that left us with the remaining rocks that did not come with the kit, the beach rocks. And boy, was I excited to find out more about what these were. This is what they looked like, process of elimination. And I realized that it's possible we had some sort of onyx, which I later came to the conclusion that it was likely golden black mudstone. Mudstone is formed from fine particles of clay that settle in water, and it can be quite rich in fossils and organic material, and can be used in construction, landscaping, as a decorative stone in gardens. But it's believed to provide grounding energy, emotional healing, inspiration for creativity, support for physical health, and protection from negativity. But let me know if you think that's accurate, because it's very well could be a meteorite, which is a small rock or particle from space, and it's typically smaller than an asteroid. But when a meteoroid enters Earth's atmosphere and survives the fiery descent, it becomes a meteorite upon landing on the surface, and it looks kind of like this. So I'm really not sure, but that would be so sick. Meteorite is believed to promote grounding, enhance spiritual growth, foster transformation, boost intuition, and provide protection against negative energies. Then there was a possible clear quartz with something red inside from the beach, but also upon further research I came to the conclusion that although I may be biased or wrong, so please let me know what you think, that this could either be a desert glass or a natural orca agate, but I'm sure it's a piece of desert glass. Desert glass is often referred to as tektite, and it's a natural glass that forms when intense heat and pressure cause silica-rich materials to melt and solidify. This phenomenon can occur due to meteorite impacts, volcanic activity, or even lightning strikes in the desert environments, and believed to have formed about 28 million years ago from a meteorite, and it typically has smooth and glassy texture, and it's even believed to promote clarity, enhance intuition, and facilitate spiritual growth while also providing grounding and protection against negative energies. There was also this beautiful rock, and what I chose as my most favorite out of the beach rocks, which I was shocked to see. I'm 99% sure it's a stone called a Dalmatian jasper, which is a naturally spotted leopard grain crystal that I found at the beach. Dalmatian jasper is a type of opaque stone characterized by its distinctive black and cream or beige spot resembling the coat of a Dalmatian doggy. It's formed from the aggregation of mineral materials, which creates a unique pattern of spots, so the stone is believed to promote a sense of playfulness and joy, enhance loyalty and trust in relationships, and provide grounding energy while helping to release negative emotions and stress, so it's pretty awesome. And finally, lastly, there was this tiny stone that actually started out as what I thought would be my favorite of the bunch, but it ended up shrinking up so much and looking way different than what it started out to be. It initially had this porphyric texture, which is a distinctive texture found in certain igneous rocks where large crystals known as phenocrysts are embedded in a finer grained ground. This texture indicates that the rocks underwent 2 stages of cooling. The larger crystals formed slowly at greater depths, while the surrounding finer material cooled more rapidly, often near the Earth's surface. It also provides valuable information about the cooling conditions and the geological history of rock formation as a whole, but phenocrysts themselves don't typically have a specific healing benefit attributed to them like some of the other crystals do, but the minerals they contain may offer healing properties based on their characteristics. And might I add, this was also one of my favorites, but the first version of this, not the final. It is quite literally so amazing to have learned about these rocks. I feel blessed, and I'm sure I will learn more as you guys start to comment and let me know what the beach rocks could be, if I was right, if I was wrong, what you guys think. I always take your opinions into account and I read every comment. But it just goes to show that rocks truly do hide the true inner beauty behind layers of more dull, irregular, sharp edges that take a long time to reveal. So, 36 days of tumbling, a number of rocks, and a boatload of patience brought us this beautiful delight of results right here. So I'll continue tumbling them for about 3 more days to give them even more shine. However, you probably know exactly what I'm about to do next. I'm going straight to the beach.